This creepypasta is called The Rake. During the summer of 2003, events in northeastern United States involving a strange, human-like creature sparked brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little or no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed, primarily focused on rural New York State, and once found in Idaho. Self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounters with a creature of unknown origins. Emotions ranged from extremely dramatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remain powerful. Several of the involved parties began looking for answers that year. In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 2 dozen documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of this group and was able to get some excerpts from their upcoming book, A Mariner's Log, 1691. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of my bed, I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not come back here. We shall not come here again. At the request of the Rake. A journal entry translated from Spanish, 1880. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I have experienced the greatest terror. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand. I will not sleep. His voice, unintelligible. A suicide note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it is necessary to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced through this act. It is not the fault of anyone other than him. For once, I awoke and felt his presence, and once I awoke and saw his form. Once again, I awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever awake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and 1 loose personal letter with no envelope. Dearest Lenny, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name. From a witness in 2006. 3 years ago, I have just returned from a trip to Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July. We were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids straight to bed and we called it a night. At about 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized and told him I thought he was out of bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed so quickly. His knee almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for half a second, I was able to see what caused a strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large hairless dog of some sort. Its body's position was disturbing and unnatural, as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, but more concerned as to its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under the assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee, tucked into a fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature. In a flurry of motion, it scrambled around the side of the bed, and then crawled quickly into a flowing sort of way right along the covers until it was less than a foot from my husband's face. It was completely silent for about 30 seconds, probably closer to 5, but it seemed like a while. Just looking at my husband, it then placed his hand on his knee and ran into the hallway leading into the kids' room. I screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop this thing before it hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it crouching and hunched over about 20 feet away. It turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped the switch on the wall and saw my daughter, Clara. The creature ran down the stairs as my husband and I rushed to help our daughter. She was very badly injured and spoke only once more in her short life. She said, "He is the Rake." My husband drove his car into a lake that night while rushing our daughter to the hospital. They did not survive. Being a small town, the news got around pretty quickly. The police were helpful at first, and the local newspaper took a lot of interest as well. However, the story was never published, and the local television news never followed up either. For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in the hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located a man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact and talked about our experiences. He knew of 2 other people in New York who had seen a creature we now referred to as the Rake. It took the 4 of us 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believed to be accounts of the Rake. None of them gave any details, history, or follow-up. One journal had an entry involving the creature in its first 3 pages, then never mentioned it again. A ship's log explained nothing of an encounter, saying only that they were told to leave by the Rake. That was the last entry in the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature's visit was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people also mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. This led us to wonder if the Rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder near my bed and left it running all night, every night for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around my bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the 2nd week, I was quite used to an occasional sound to sleep while blurring through the recording at 8 times the normal speed. It still took almost an hour every day. On the first day of the 3rd week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the Rake. I can't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone listen to it yet. All I know is that I heard it before, and now I believe that it spoke when it was sitting in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason, the voice on the recorder immediately brings me back to that moment. I have not seen the Rake since he ruined my life, but I know that he has been in my room while I slept. I know and fear that one night, I'll wake up to see him staring at me. This creepypasta is called Clown in the Woods. Where should we play? The park? Asked Ben. Ben was my cousin, and my sister Olivia was also with us. She loved playing with dolls, especially her new collection of Dream Mermaid dolls. Of course, this wasn't suitable for all of us, so we all had to meet each other halfway. So we all decided to go to the park. There was a park in walking distance, which has some play equipment and whatnot, as well as a soccer field. Of course, as well as playing on regular equipment, which was swings, slides, and rock climbing, etc. We also played tag nearby. It was actually quite fun, and I could tell from Olivia's smile and Ben's giggling that we were all sharing the happy feeling. Not far from where we were playing, there was a small area with some dirt trails for hikers and joggers to walk or run along, with thick trees and foliage which you could describe as a mini forest on either side of them. Of course, Ben and Olivia and I had no intention of going in, seeing as there was nothing to play in there, as well as the numerous reported sightings of foxes. We all decided to play soccer on the field that was adjacent to the playground with all the equipment. We spent about 2 hours having fun playing soccer and had many games that were 2-on-1. I'm happy to say that we all got our share of wins and losses and we all had fun, but it took one of Ben's double whopper kicks to send the ball hurtling through the air and through the trees of the forest. Unfortunately, due to the forest's hilly geography, the ball rolled down and disappeared into the trees. Of course, this meant that I had to go and fetch the ball, but despite my feelings, I bravely ventured in. Ben and Olivia trailed along for fun, but there was something about these woods that unsettled me. It was just the fact that the forest was dead quiet despite being near some fairly popular sporting facilities. The contrast between the quiet forest and the playground and soccer field was uncanny. Not before long, the sight of the jogging trails disappeared through the trees, and I began to get a little uncomfortable. Maybe it was the ways that the trees were twisting in odd, distorted patterns. Olivia began hugging my leg with fear, and Ben's face got the unmistakable look of being uncomfortable, and also huddled up close to me for comfort. We had sighted the ball, and I quickly ran over to retrieve it. It was in a small ditch, but I managed to get it out with a little effort. Ben and Olivia had already begun walking away, and I immediately followed along to make sure that they stayed out of trouble. But it wasn't until about 3 minutes later that I realized they had been walking in the wrong way. Approaching the ditch and retrieving the ball had made me lose my sense of direction. I began pointing them in the right direction, but then Olivia said in her small voice, "Josh, I think I saw someone." I could tell from her voice that she was scared, and I just sighed lovingly. I told her that people often came through here for hiking, but Olivia said that he had a white face and a red nose, like a clown. Then Ben randomly screamed at an ear-piercing volume, and I was beginning to get worried. Naturally, I decided that we all leave immediately. As we began to walk out, a man dressed in a clown mask with striking red hair emerged from behind a tree. He had a cheap-looking black jacket on, accompanied by some tacky pants, accompanied by pale gloves. At this moment, we were paralyzed with fear, but when I snapped out of it, I snapped a photo of him for evidence. which is shown above. We didn't even need to tell each other to run. Our legs just made us move for us. We all sprinted like we were in the Olympics. I felt hopeless that we were in such a secluded area. After about a couple of minutes, the bouncing of feet behind us had stopped, and we turned around and were greeted by a relieving absence of the clown. Olivia was crying at this point, and Ben just had a worried look on his face. After I had calmed them both down, I told him that we would slowly sneak through the trees, and that all three of us would keep an eye out, and so we did. But about halfway back, we heard maniacal laughter behind us, and the clown was chasing us again. We all resumed our frantic dash, and when we finally reached the clearing, the clown had once again retreated back into the thick foliage. I told my dad the whole story and showed him the photo. We called the police, but by the time they got there, they said they had found no trace of a clown, except for one of the gloves that we had seen on him. But soon after, they made a terrifying discovery. Apparently, the clown abducted and killed children that wandered into the woods alone. He would then sneak out and steal some kids from the playground to sell, before returning to the forest and killing them. The police had assumed this from the bones and corpses that they discovered. All the police had to say was that we were lucky to not become part of the clown's collection of children. This creepypasta is called Emails from Scotland. A friend of mine went up to Scotland recently and got back a few days ago. I forget the exact reason he went. These are the emails he's been sending me. They get really strange as they go on, so I thought I'd share them to see if you guys would have any theories on what the hell's going on. I'm omitting some stuff about our personal lives and general stuff, which nobody will be interested in. Received Thursday, 2:32 a.m. I'm home and glad about it. Scotland itself was kinda dull, but the trip down was messed up. I'm alright now, but I was pretty freaked out at the time. I guess I'll start at the very beginning. The drive up there and the trip itself was predictably awful. Despite the wonder that is my DS, I remain emotionally detached from my family. But on the plus side, I got a level 70 Dragon Knight, so I can't complain. It was on a trip back it happened. There was a lot of traffic, and so we hadn't even made it halfway home before it was late at night. My parents' business had taken longer than they expected, so we only been able to set off home mid-afternoon. But my dad decided he hadn't wanted to spend another day in Scotland, so we were just going to drive home in the middle of the night. Didn't make much sense to me either. We were driving along some road an hour or so north of the border, based on the fact that we passed the border an hour later. I don't know the exact area. It had gotten pretty dark, and at this time of day, the roads were quiet. We still saw an occasional car every so often, but it was something like one or two every quarter of an hour. My dad had the radio on at this point, listening to some random station. It had been on for quite a while, but it was just typical pop music, that kind of thing. We hadn't seen a car in at least half an hour, and aside from the noise of the traveling and dark empty fields all around, there were no real signs of life anywhere. A bit dramatic, I know. I suppose I'm giving justification for what, in hindsight, might have been a bit of an overreaction. Anyway, this song starts playing on the radio, a slow folk-like kind of ballad. I don't know what it was called, but a deep voiced male singer sang, "It's alright to cry, crying gets the sad out of you. It's alright to cry, it might make you feel better." It stuck in my head because it seemed really inappropriate for a station that we were playing. Nothing like the songs that had already been on. It seemed really odd. I can't explain it, but listening made me feel a little strange. I really felt like I was being watched, which is kind of stupid, given that I was in a moving car with my family. But halfway through the song, it cut out. At first, there were just general static sounds, but then a god-awful screeching came in, and then a kind of wet clicking noise. It was like nothing I ever heard before, and it filled the car. It was that loud. It got louder as it went on, and it became more like a rumbling with breathy noises. The best way I could describe it would be like a dog hacking up a lung, but it was worse than that. There were big chunk noises interspersed in there, with sounds like people throwing up, or screaming, or mixtures of the two. It was pretty fucking trippy. It lasted for all of 5 seconds, but I shit you not, when I say those 5 seconds will stay with me for the rest of my life. The sound faded out, and the song from before, I looked it up upon getting home. It's apparently called "It's Alright to Cry." It started playing again. Nobody said anything till it finished, and even then, I was the first one to speak. That was pretty messed up. What, the song? Kind of unusual for the station. I thought so too. My dad answered me. No, what happened in the middle? What was that? The signal probably just cut out by one of those hills around here. I was getting a bit impatient here. Yeah, but what was that noise? I never heard anything like that. Chris, my friend's brother, looked at me in a really odd way and said, "It's static." Static? You know, I'm used to my brother messing me around, but there's no way anyone would believe for a second that this noise had been static. I ignored him. "Dad, what do you think it was?" And without missing a goddamn beat, he answered, "Just static." He even sounded puzzled. Meanwhile, another song had started. I forget what it was exactly, but it was typical pop crap that had been playing before. I asked each of my family, and they all swear to me that they heard nothing close to what I described to them. Just regular static. Even my mother, and I can't believe she lied to me. The rest of the drive home was pretty quiet. I think my family thought I'd gone a bit odd, and I wasn't in much mood to talk myself. As I half suspected, they were playing a hilarious joke on me. I don't know. In retrospect, maybe it was just some funny effect on sound waves bouncing, notes and such. But Christ, it really felt wrong at that time. Even now, I feel a little unsettled. General chat follows. I replied late on Friday night with some usual stuff, telling about what I'd been up to, how my girlfriend had got a new job, that kind of thing. I said the thing he heard was probably just some weird distortion, and paid no mind to it. The next correspondence I got was this. Saturday, 12:21 p.m. Hey man, thanks for getting back to me. Tell Lisa as a congrats on the job. You're probably right about that noise. To be honest, I think I'm having a bit of a funny week. I keep seeing dark things in the corner of my eyes, or getting a feeling like something's behind me, then turning around and nothing's there. I sound like a paranoid pothead, I know, but I've been clean for months now. It's probably stress, my dad says, hence the thing in the car. Anyway, general chat follows. Kind of concerned, I replied straight away. I had been online at the time, asking him if he was sure he was okay, and that we could talk if he was stressed, etc. He replied, Saturday, 12:50 p.m. Nah, don't worry about it, it's nothing serious. Like I said, flashes of an image or something, which is probably just floaters in the eye. Or thinking I heard some sound for a moment that disappears. No doubt someone will let me know if I start going fully mental. There was only one that really shook me. It was late last night, and I was checking out the web listening to some of that Jeff Magnum stuff he sent me. He means Magnum. On my headphones, when the sound started to get a little funny. Like there was extra notes and beats that hadn't been there before. At first I thought it was just lag or something, so I paused and I started again. But it actually got worse. I moved to the next song in a playlist and it kept doing it. After a few seconds, it sounded like two entirely different songs were playing on top of each other. I started trying to pick out what the other thing is, when guess what the hell I started hearing? It's alright to cry. Crying gets the sad out of you. It sounded weird now, kind of distorted, or a change in pitch, but I was sure I heard that song playing in the background. It was late and I was the only one here. Parents and Chris had gone out for the evening, so I was pretty freaked out. I sat there listening for a few seconds as the other song became more and more prominent. Suddenly I thought, or I convinced myself or something, that I heard a chunk, and the hoarse exhaling noise began. It was the noise I heard in the car. I was sure. I'll admit it, I was terrified. All the disgust I experienced while I sat in the car hearing that noise for the first time returned, but with a sense of immediacy or presence. It felt like it was right there with me, like it was touching me. I felt a chill, and the hairs on my arm stood up. Instantly, my hand flew up to the speaker to the left of my computer, hitting the power button, but the sound didn't disappear straight away. It carried on for a couple of seconds. Something that usually doesn't happen with these speakers. I swear, just before it died away, it sounded almost like talking. Messed up, huh? Like I say, stress or something. I had a talk with my dad and he listened to the whole story. When I finished, he didn't say anything for a while and just looked at me quietly with kind of a strange expression. Eventually, he said I shouldn't worry about it and try to take it easy. It was probably just stress from A-levels combined with too many horror movies. Thanks for asking anyway. You take care. I didn't really know what to make of this, truth be told. I was busy with my own life. The next I heard was this. Sunday, 7:40 p.m. Can you call me? I know it's out of the blue and a bit weird, but I really need to talk to someone. Knowing your lack of a life, you'll probably be on when I send this. Seriously though, it's kind of important. Here's the number. It's my house number. I can't find my mobile. I was online, so I tried calling him, but it wouldn't go through. I replied as much in the email and told him to call me, giving him my number and suggesting that one of us try his mobile to help him find it. I got this back. Sunday, 7:45 p.m. Doesn't work for me either. Something's wrong. I don't have time now, but I'll email again later. Try to call me again if you can. Keep trying. Wednesday, 9:50 p.m. It's not going away. God, I feel like a total nutcase as I tell you this, but I hear that noise again. When I sleep? No. When I wait to go to sleep, in my room, when it's all quiet, it's like something just on the edge of hearing, but it's there, and no one believes me. I'm the only one here tonight. They've all gone. But I feel like something's watching me. Like, something in the house. Crazy things are happening. I hear the shower turn on in the middle of the night, just for a few seconds then stop. When I eventually persuade myself to go take a look, nothing's there. The mailbox flaps. Probably street kids, you say. I went to the bathroom an hour ago, while I was sat on the toilet. I heard a noise outside. I immediately stopped dead and held my breath. I swear to God, I heard footsteps out in the hall, and that's not all. The bathroom's door is quite high off the ground, letting light in. But something stepped in front of the door, and it blocked that light. And it just waited there, like it stood, facing the door, looking at me through it. Eventually, after I sat there for 5 heart-pounding minutes, breathing the shortest, quietest breaths I could, they moved, and I heard the footsteps padding away. It was half an hour before I dared leave that bathroom. I'm the only one in the house. I checked every room. Am I losing my mind? I still hadn't replied. Didn't know what to say really when I got this. Wednesday, 10:41 p.m. I can't even use the computer. It's gone funny. Audio corrupted. Speakers hissing. Just messed up. Shit. Wait. I put the TV on downstairs to keep me company. I can kinda hear it from up here. For a second, I was sure it was playing that song. I'm going mad. I went downstairs to grab some crisp, just something I could get quickly to keep me going. I don't like being downstairs alone right now. And as I stepped into the kitchen, I smelled. Why do I want to say death? Bins. Must have been bins. Realistically, yeah. They smell like rotting things because they rot. I went to look out the window earlier, when the letterbox was going to see if I could see anyone. I couldn't see anything out there. It was completely black. I couldn't see a foot in front of my face. Why are all the street lamps out? I've replied and suggested he call someone to come over and spend time with him, or call his parents and chat to them. Best I could come up with. Wednesday, 11:03 p.m. I can't. No one's around. It's just me. It comes just for me. I keep hearing it. That song. It's playing downstairs somewhere. And there are no other noises too. I hear them. The noise from before. I recognize the clicking, the breathing. I'm scared. I'm really scared. I don't know what to do. I don't believe in ghosts or monsters, but there's something here. I can feel it. Wednesday, 11:10 p.m. I hear those words again, clearer now. Wednesday, 11:18 p.m. There's something in the house. I can hear it moving downstairs. Trying to call the police online. Where the fuck is my phone? Call police and send them to this address. There's no address there. I even highlighted the space to see if he had written it in white. It's just blank. I don't get it. This isn't funny. I replied saying that there was no address, and he seemed not to understand. There was no acknowledgement of it in the following reply. Wednesday, 11:25 p.m. For fuck's sake, hurry up and get someone here at least talk to me. I'm not fucking kidding. I hear something in the house. Wednesday, 11:37 p.m. I hear it coming. Christ help. Monday, 11:38 p.m. It's here for me. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help me. Help. 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 He sent me the last message 4 times, one after another. I've been trying to call him for the last hour pretty much. No reply. I have no idea what the hell to do. This creepypasta is called 7:05. 7:05 a.m. You stir awake from your Saturday morning slumber by a light buzzing coming from the other side of the room. Almost instinctively, you dash across the room to turn off your vibrating phone. It shows one unread text message from a number you don't recognize. Received at 7:05 a.m. Your phone's familiar buzz rings through your head as you wake up to find another unread message. The number is the same as the first, and the feeling of the words give you isn't much different either. Received at 9:10 a.m. I've decided the bathrooms will be the good place to hide. I swear I can hear footsteps coming towards me. I heard them from hours. I need to find a way out, but I'm too afraid to move. It feels like the walls are closing in on me. All I know is that I need to get out of here. It's not safe. You're starting to get worried. You want to help and you try to reply, but you're unsure of what to say. You try to shrug the messages off as some kind of prank, but doing so doesn't seem to make the anxious feelings go away. For now, you decide to go on about your day as you normally would. 11:14 a.m. It's been 2 hours. The anxiety has nearly subsided. You find yourself unable to eat. This unexplainable feeling has an effect on your appetite. Then, right on cue, you hear that same unpleasant sound. Received at 11:15 a.m. I decide to run. Just run. I have no plan, but I gotta find an exit somewhere. The doors are all locked. Now there's nowhere else for me to go. I feel cornered, and the footsteps just keep getting louder. Needless to say, these messages are starting to get to you. You can't deal with this. You decide to just let it go. Ignore the feelings, ignore the messages. There's no reason for you to get involved with any of this. You hear your phone buzz many times in the next few hours, but you try your best to block out the noise. 4:01 p.m. Another buzz. The anxiety is becoming overwhelming. Enough is enough. You check your phone to find 4 more unread messages, all from the same number as before. Received at 12:13 p.m. I don't know how long I've been running for. The footsteps won't go away. I can't escape them. No matter how fast I run, they just keep getting louder, and they're starting to seem ubiquitous. Received at 1:06 p.m. I can't run anymore. The footsteps are deafening, and they're pounding on the walls all around me. I must be going insane. There are voices in my head. These halls are speaking to me, but the words are unintelligible. Received at 2:24 p.m. The footsteps, the voices, Every sound has stopped. All that's left is a horrific ringing. My ears have begun to bleed. My hearing is nearly gone, and it feels like my vision is beginning to fail as well. Nothing seems to be the color it should be. The once large array of colors now turn to various shades of black and red. The heat in here is unbearable. I'm drenched in sweat. Received at 4:01 p.m. I'm seeing shadows out the corner of my eyes. The walls are constantly moving. I keep trying to convince myself that this is all just a sick dream. But the heat, the shadows, the blood, it's all so real. I feel helpless. At this point, you're convinced that this is no joke. You need to find him and save him, but how? What could you possibly do to help? All you can do right now is wait for the next message. Received at 5:12 p.m. I've started to pound my head against the wall in an attempt to make the voices stop. I feel like I'm surrounded, constantly watched by someone or something. Make it stop, please. Just make it all stop. Received at 5:56 p.m. Received at 5:56 p.m. There is so much blood. The pain doesn't seem to bother me anymore. It's my only distraction for this madness. I'm beginning to feel numb. I'm not sure how much longer I'll make it. If you're reading these messages, stay far away from Bellevue High School. There is something terribly wrong with this place. At that moment, you realize that whoever this person is, they're not far from you. You need to go to that high school. This could be your chance. You could save him. 6:25 p.m. You made up your mind. You're going to that school. You got no idea what you're going to do when you get there. But you know that you got to do something. You waited long enough. Received at 6:57 p.m. I can't take this. I can't stand another second of this nightmare. There is so much blood, I can barely breathe. I'm certain this will be all over soon. It has to be. Blood. So much blood. Make it stop, please. Just make this madness stop. You dart into school and take a quick look around. The halls seem to be empty. Where is he? You expected to see a bloodbath. For the first time, you replied to the message. Sent at 7:02 p.m. I'm here. I'm at the school. Where are you? Almost instantly, you hear a buzz. Received at 7:02 p.m. I'm here. I'm at the school. Where are you? At first, you are confused. You reread the messages over and over again, and the pieces slowly come together in your mind. The messages you received all day, they were all sent from your phone. With that, the door slams shut behind you, and you start to hear footsteps coming after you. Scared and alone, you turn to run, catching a glimpse of the time displayed on the clock overhead. 7:05. This creepypasta is called Venting Download. I remember the early days of YouTube. Those were the good old days. I am a true gamer, and I was into web shows on YouTube that revolved around video games. One of my favorite series was called Remember This Game, about obscure games, narrated by a YouTuber user named JHF who unfortunately deleted his channel. In October, he made an episode revolving around a banned computer game called Venting. The game featured a lot of disturbing content and has since been banned. I thought the story made for a good creepypasta article without Aju being one. While I can't bring you the original video, I can give you a transcript. Remember This Game, Episode 14, the Halloween Special. The theme song plays. Remember This Game, Venting. Hello, this is your video game wizard, here once again. Back in 2004, I was really into downloadable online games. There are many to pick from, some I remember and some that I don't. One that I will never forget is Venting. At first, I never played it. The website I downloaded it from was a very generic and didn't give off the sense of a fun game. Then a friend of mine who had played the game told me not to play it, that it was the most frightening game he had ever played. I became curious and decided to download the game. despite my friend's advice. Apparently, it came with backgrounds you could put on your computer. I'll get into that in a few minutes. This is where poor quality footage from the game begins to play. It turned out to be a first-person shooter. There were a lot of fun ones back in those days. The gameplay itself was not all that fun and extremely generic. It didn't look like developers put much effort into the game, and it only consisted of 12 levels. And all of them were basically the same level design. The environment was non-existent. The ground was in 360-degree flat landscape with no textures. The sky was a light yellowish gray. The enemies were non-threatening and didn't do anything. They just stood there without any movement whatsoever, with the exception of occasional head turns. They were all the same 3D character model, just copied and pasted into each level. Each level had a different 3D model and were supposed to shoot them. Compared to modern violent games like San Andreas and even Resident Evil 4, the game wasn't as graphic, but it lacked any of the multiple objectives like in those games. You shoot the characters and they just fall down as the little blood squirts, and the only objective to the whole game is to shoot people and nothing else. The sound in the game was so close to being non-existent. The only sound in the whole game is the song Fur Elise being played on the synthesizer over and over again. So this is where Fur Elise plays. I was about to stop playing the game after the first level, but then I realized the whole point of it was to kill a certain number of people. After killing all the copy and paste characters in the first level, you'll be given a free computer background. A screen came up that read, "You killed 57 people. Click here for your free background." I clicked the button for the background and was horrified to see what it was. A photo of a dead teenage boy, laying in a grass field near a park bench. His body had 4 bullet holes in it. The creepy thing was that the boy looked like a character model in the first level. The character model for the second level was an older bald man, and after beating that level, you are given another background. This time, it was a photo of a dead bald man who looks like the character model in the second level. He also appeared to have bullet holes in him. His body was lying in a swimming pool. I wanted to stop, but it felt like something was making me continue. I felt like I was uncovering some kind of murder mystery. After beating all 12 levels, I was introduced with the only cutscene in the whole game. We see the landscape of dead bodies, then we finally see the character you play as. It was revealed to be a stark white humanoid with no detail, not even any facial features. After shooting all of these people, it points the gun at his own face and pulls the trigger. When his body drops to the ground, and if you listen closely, you can hear the faint sound of someone crying as the text reading "Game Over" appears on the screen. This is where the sound of the crying plays. I don't know why, but I saved the photos of the dead bodies. I gave them to my local police department, and it turns out the game was developed by Jonathan Whitestone Banks, a self-loathing college game designer from North Carolina. The following day, after putting the game on the internet, he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. He left behind a suicide note where he confessed to the deaths of the 18 people, 12 of which were the people in the photos. The website where I downloaded the game from was deleted a few weeks after reporting the photos to the police. The strange thing is that none of the people he killed were identified. I know I shouldn't do this, but disregarding the whole backstory, this game was the worst thing that I have ever played. There was no competition, no gameplay, no nothing. The only 2 reasons to play this game were for the whole backstory and get a feeling of what it's like to see through the eyes of a psychopath. I won't give a rating knowing about this game. I can't give one. Anyway, that's the whole story. Hope it was informative, and Halloween is only a few days away. I hope you have a good one. This is your video game wizard, signing off. This creepypasta is called The Frequency. In the late 1950s, scientists accidentally discovered something that wasn't meant to exist. It was dubbed the frequency. The frequency works on a basis. Prolonged exposure increases symptoms of paranoid anxiety. For example, somebody who was exposed for 10 minutes will have less indications than a person exposed for an hour. This frequency was kept a secret. If it were revealed, quite a bit of hysteria could be stirred up. Naturally, the scientists responsible for it felt it was necessary to test its effects on humans. The first test, which lasted about 20 minutes, showed no immediate effects, with the exception of some acute anxiety. Test 2 lasted 2 hours long. After going past the 20-minute mark, the subject seemed anxious. As observed in the previous test, for this test, the scientists took extra measures and strapped the subject to a chair. The test continued. After 45 minutes had passed, the subject seemed agitated. They stated that they were being bothered by some kind of fog in front of their eyes. We acknowledged the individual's discomposure, while at the same time, taking notes on the effects of the frequency inducing symptoms. With 1 hour and 15 minutes on the timer, the subject appeared more distressed. He was constantly moaning and whining, while showing signs of delusion. He constantly darted his head around the soundproof room at random intervals. About 20 minutes later, the subject began to weep. When questioned by one of the scientists, he complained that these shadowy figures were standing in the fog. It should also be mentioned that the subject stopped moving around to stare at the wall the chair was facing. With 15 minutes left on the timer, the subject suddenly broke into full panic mode. They started rocking and making frantic facial gestures towards the scientists, begging them to end their suffering. They were constantly blathering that the shadows were walking out from the fog and that they were going to take them. With 30 seconds left to tick away, the subject's spastic movements freed them from the prison. They sprinted out the test room. Before the scientists could stop them, the subject snatched a scalpel from the surgical table and grabbed the scientist nearest to him. The subject proceeded to drag the blade across the scientist's throat, ending their life. The subject then dug the scalpel into his own eyes and removed them from their sockets, in an attempt to rid himself of the images. Naturally, the tests were scrapped and the research was buried deep in the archives. I put your life at risk by waiting this long to tell you. You see, the so-called frequency is a low and loud hum. One cannot listen to it for too long. Although it's probably too late considering the time you've been on the site trying to scare yourself, you're soon to experience what real fear is. Let's review the facts. It is generated in a place which could cause mass panic if discovered. It makes you feel fear and anxiety, and is a low, loud hum. All seem pretty damn inconclusive to me, but wait. What's that sound coming from the device you're reading this on?